Sometimes you just gotta buy a new headlight. 60,000 miles though.
¿Cómo te amaneciste? Bien, muy bien.
What's up?
How'd you sleep?
Oh, it's good. No, it's good.
Friday morning, March 15th, 2019. The plan was to leave the city at 7:30 a.m., but we got a late start, due in part to the super late night with the Malportados Vespa gang, and because eating at San Cosmico, the restaurant we had visited the night before, was something Christina really wanted to do. No worries, we're on vacation, and I didn't mind sleeping in at all. I think we got on the road to the restaurant around 9 a.m. Before we get going here, since everyone is in a helmet at this point, let's do some identification. Riding 2 up ahead of me in the Captain America helmet is Steve. Christina is behind him in the white Baja-bound helmet. Robot is to my right in the white modular helmet with gray jacket. Dutra is in a wood grain half helmet, but he rode behind us most of the time, so he won't appear in too many riding clips. And up ahead, Trapo is leading us through the morning Mexico City traffic on the vintage Vespa. I had just visited Mexico City about 4 months prior in November during Dia de los Muertos with Michelle, who was unable to accompany us on this trip. So a lot of what we rode past this morning was very familiar. We had just walked all over these neighborhoods, but any rider knows that there is just something totally different about exploring on a bike. It all felt entirely new. Traffic in Mexico City is always thick, and the thought of driving or riding there seems a little overwhelming at first, until you recognize the order in perpetual motion. Overly hesitant drivers make me pretty crazy back home, and you will not find them in Mexico City. If you keep moving, you'll be all right. It's when you slow down or become unpredictable and jerky that you might find yourself in a situation. Just honk, turn your head, signal, wave, and scoot on. The ride here was pretty short, but Trapo spotted 2 friends walking the streets as we made our way over to San Cosmico.
Bien.
After breakfast, Trapo and Alejandro jumped on a GTS and led us westward out of the city. Lane splitting is the norm all over Mexico and in most of the world, and the drivers down here expect you to do it. It was way too dark to record, but I still wish I had the GoPro running on the Thursday night ride. We rolled up to a stoplight and I didn't have enough space to get between 2 cars. And to my surprise, the driver in the car on the left of me actually rolled down the passenger side window, leaned across his seat, and pulled in the passenger side mirror so I could get by. He got a big muchas gracias for that one. It blew me away. These drivers understand the congestion relief that comes with taking motorcycles and scooters out of the traffic scene. I hope we can catch up with that way of thinking someday in all U.S. states. At this point, we're on the outskirts of Mexico City, saying goodbyes before splitting off from our Mexico City hosts. From here, we'd head west and up even higher into the sky toward Toluca. Mexico City's elevation is listed at 2,250 meters, or 7,382 feet. Toluca is 8,750 feet. That's 3,600 feet higher than Denver, Colorado. As we cruised up the hill between miles of stopped traffic, my bike in particular really started bogging down. Letting off the throttle at all really took the life out of it, so I tried to hold it wide open the whole time. But at that altitude, a 150cc Vespa feels like a 50. quick note. Notice this truck getting out of the way for me. Thanks, buddy. It got a little chilly on the ride, but the trees were beautiful. This probably isn't what most people picture when they think of Mexico. So we're stopped on the side of the road here, just a quick bathroom break, and then we'll head on. We're about halfway to the first stop of the day, and it's supposed to get really pretty out through here now that we're out of the city of Toluca.
Is doing okay, that thing?
Just slow.
Taking the free roads in Mexico is the way to go. You get scenery, and then a small town with a few speed bumps, and then more scenery, rinse and repeat. And that's what it's all about, right? None of us flew down here to take the quickest route. Seeing the life in the towns and all the subtle differences here is what makes this fun. Like I said before, the bike I was on really slowed down on the hills. I'd lose everyone on the way up, except for Dutra, who dutifully rode behind me, and then I'd catch up with everyone on the way downhill. Dutra and I got stuck behind this super slow truck for so long that we actually got text messages asking if everything was okay. Further up the road, we realized that we were still fairly far from our first destination, and the day was getting away from us. So we decided to hop onto the autopista, or the toll road, to make up some ground. But funny enough, by the time we jumped on it, we probably didn't even get that far ahead. Steve said he looked off the side down to the free road below and saw the same cars we had been trailing the entire time, keeping up with us. It is what it is. So the first stop of the day was somewhere in Jungapeo, Michoacan. Now don't be ashamed if you've never heard of it. Most Mexican residents we met on the trip had no idea where it was. Google Maps led us off the main highway and down, down, down into a deep valley we went. The temperature raised considerably the further we dropped until it was getting uncomfortable in a helmet, jacket, and gloves. It must be brutal down there in the summer. The town itself was pretty cool, small, quaint, quintessentially Mexican. We learned a little later in the day that just a year ago, cartel violence had been prevalent in the area, but since the presence of federales had been ramped up, the town has gone back to normal. So this was a pretty cool experience. One of Steve's construction crew members, Antonio, is from Jungapeo. When Steve mentioned he was going to be riding through the area, an offer was made to stop and say hello to his mom and bring her some gifts. We crossed a teapot and some platters for her and delivered them upon arrival. Rita and Jose Luis were waiting for us and had cooked a big lunch spread. Steve filled them in on details about Antonio and about our ride thus far. Rita fried a big pile of rabbit in the backyard, which they call Conejo Kentucky. Inside the house, we all sat at the large dining table, talking and enjoying a mountain of fried rabbit, fresh guacamole, rice, beans, fresh vegetables, Coca-Cola, squirt, tequila, homemade salsa, other sweets, and a super good pumpkin dessert, which is boiled with a sugar cane, which makes it all gelatinous and delicious. The food was fantastic, and after lunch we toured the upstairs addition of the house that's being built and then worked our way outside. There's a dog coming.
Hey, you gotta get a dog in here.
Hola, perro. So we're in Jungapeo, Michoacan, and there's a bunch of mango farmers up here. All right, after lunch, heading down to the square to get some ice cream. Cruising down this hill. It's kind of hot out. Going back up this hill, not going to be fun.
¿Ya llegamos? ¿Esa es la nieve? No. Ah.
¿Se cansaba?
Pero ellos viven uno. Disfruta tu feria.
I really can't say enough about how hospitable Rita and Jose Luis were. We learned later that they were super excited to have us and didn't really want us to leave. It's not every day you get invited into the home of strangers for a meal, or that a bunch of Americans roll into your town on Vespas to hang out for a few hours. It was definitely a special occasion for both of us, and it's not something I'm ever going to forget. That said, coupled with the late exit from Mexico City, by the time we left Jungapeo, we were massively behind schedule. The sun was going to set within 30 minutes or so, and we were only about 1/3 of the way to the day's target, Morelia, Michoacan. Although just 85 miles away, with the slower free roads winding through hills and towns, Google estimated the ride was still nearly 3 hours without stopping on the most direct route. We rode as fast as we could in the dark to try to gain some ground, but eventually just about 10 miles up the road we stopped at a gas station to reconsider. If it were not for Robot's dimming headlight, heavy with 60,000 plus miles of use, we might have pressed on in the dark. Instead, we backtracked 5 miles to Ciudad de Hidalgo, which wasn't even in Steve's Lonely Planet book, to look for a hotel. The second place we saw looked decent, so we stopped in and got 2 rooms. After securing the bikes and back, we walked down to another gas station to load up on snacks, beers, and tequila. We were basically the only people in the hotel, and we spent the rest of the evening hanging out in the courtyard, talking and knocking them back. With all the delays and a hard target of Guadalajara by tomorrow night, we all knew that day 3 was going to be a big, big ride.